y'all do another episode of Speak Now, episode 12, if that's correct. I believe we're on 12. Um, I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving week. And how are you guys doing after this past week of sports specifically, of course?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, it was a little rough. Had a good Thanksgiving meal, but something about the Lions game didn't sit too well. But it's been 10 days, so or actually it's been a week. It'll be 10 days before they play their next game. So, but it was good to have Michigan win over the weekend. So, something positive to take away, at least as a Lions and Michigan fan, anyway.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. It was kind of a disappointing start to Thanksgiving to see the Lions game. Um, Obviously that was like in the morning time for me, so that's how I started my morning. Was very disappointing. I came in at the like halftime, then they come out and score right after half, and I was like, oh, maybe they're gonna pick it up, and they never did, and it was very frustrating to watch. It kind of reminded me of watching the Steelers, not gonna lie. But my weekend got better because for the first time in like 58, 59 games, the Pittsburgh Steelers had a 400-yard game. And it only resulted in 16 points, but we're going to work on that. At least the first game post Matt Canada is at least giving evidence to Matt Canada was the problem. He is the anti-hero.
Yeah, I mean, I like I saw the Najee, by the way. I think that's a I think Najee really shut everybody up with that. But yeah, it really I don't know, Thanksgiving was I hate to say Thanksgiving's determined based off the Lions result, but for 7 years in a row, I can say my Thanksgiving hasn't been all that great. Um, but it's good to see family. But when the Lions lose, for some reason that always overshadows it. It's probably an issue of mine rather than Thanksgiving. But I think with Steve's mention of Michigan, I think I'd be remiss not to at least mention um, the most watched football game, at least college football game of the year by far. Michigan, I want to say handily, but I'm just going to say they beat Ohio State for the third year in a row. It was pretty convincing, pretty much solidified their spot in the playoff. And Steve, you're really the other big Michigan guy. From what you saw out of Michigan, what did they prove to you, and also what did it prove about the investigation that's kind of overshadowed their season thus far?
Yeah, I think Harbaugh's really proven to be at least the program that he runs and kind of the tough mentality and the running game. And I think they just out toughed Ohio State again. I think it's just, you have the whole second half and not one punt, not one time stop the whole second half. And I agree with you. They didn't necessarily dominate. I mean, obviously Ohio State could have scored a touchdown to win the game at the end, but really, as a Michigan fan, I wasn't really concerned that Ohio State was really going to win that game. I think it's just been that way for the last 3 years, and as long as Jim Harbaugh's at Michigan, I think it's going to most years continue to be that way. Whether he stays or not, that's a whole nother conversation or topic. But I think you have a lot of which you didn't have in, say 5, 10 years ago, a lot of NFL talent on the Michigan roster on top of putting together a good plan and being able to win the game year after year, which they're starting to prove.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it also since Ryan Day has taken over, you see less focus on the game, and I think a lot less toughness out of Ohio State, where you kind of just beat them at the line of scrimmage and you have a good shot to beat them, which we had mentioned last week before the game. So it's interesting to see where Ohio State will go throughout this because I feel like losing a third game in a row kind of sends them in like a panic. Um, and I think it kind of showed, Ohio State didn't even post a final score, so clearly they're embarrassed. But I will say for you, Jonathan, Paul Feinbaum has been radio silent since that game. I think it's like, you know, it's no shocker. I think we're a Paul Feinbaum hating show from this point. But I mean, the dinosaurs radio silent at this point.
Yeah, I think we should take some credit, since our video dropped. Like, what has he said? What has he done? So, three guys
Well,
that
I
get
mean, he
less than
posted
100
about
views
the.
on their podcast. Yeah, we silenced him. Get wrecked, Paul.
I mean, he only talks about the SEC now. So I mean, what? Who knows? He's just a hater. But I'd say obviously, John, did you tune into the game, Jonathan?
I was working, so I didn't, but I looked at the score during my shift. So it was nice. It's nice to
Yeah,
see.
I, it was wonderful. I think it like a lot of people mentioned. I think my last personal thought on it is that with the playoffs expanding to 12 teams next year, it really and the fact that if Michigan lost this game, I feel like the sign stealing allegations would like go to a whole nother level. Like Ohio State, they'd lose like all credibility. Like the past two wins wouldn't mean anything because the sign stealing would just be shadowing above that. Plus it was the last game, the game where like your playoff, um, like if you win this game, you'll make the playoff. It was like the last game that truly meant that because they'd both be in if it was a 12 team. So I thought that was a really big aspect of this game as well. I mean, it was probably the biggest one in 10, 20 years where for Michigan at least, who if they lost this game, it'd be detrimental to the program,
Yeah, for
which
sure. I mean, I think if Michigan lost to Iowa for some reason, which isn't going to happen, I still think they would be out of the playoffs personally. Just because of what you said, the sign stealing and everything else, and the fact that you lose to Iowa, but the chances of that are probably below 2 or 3% of that happening. Whereas a team like Georgia loses to Alabama, they're still going to be in the playoffs. So um, that's my thought there. So I don't think that guarantees them to make the playoffs. It just keeps them in that number one or number two slot, depending on the Georgia Alabama game. And number three is going to be whoever wins between Washington and Oregon, in my opinion. And then Florida State has to win by at least 3 touchdowns, I think, against Louisville to not lose that fourth spot. Just because they lost their quarterback, who was putting up phenomenal numbers. I mean, they dropped from 3 to 4 and they won their game last week. So I think the committee's looking for an excuse to move up either Alabama, Texas, Ohio State, whoever it might be up into that fourth slot, or if Georgia lost, they would drop down to that slot potentially. So I guess those are my thoughts on the playoffs.
I mean, I think an undefeated Florida State not making it's kind of just I think it makes the committee lose all credibility, to be honest. I mean, what's the point of going undefeated if you're just going to get looked over as a Power Five program? Like, I get they lost their quarterback, but they deservedly went undefeated.
You pick the best four
But I mean,
teams. That's what you do. That's what the playoffs all about. The best 4 teams. It doesn't matter if you went undefeated. They could put Liberty in it because they went undefeated.
Yeah,
I,
college
I
football
think that,
playoff rankings haven't normally mattered about undefeatedness at this point.
It's all opinion.
hmm I agree with Steve
yeah, I
because
don't know. I
you can't put in Florida State if for them for the committee like they want the best product for the playoffs, and I get Florida State went undefeated or could go undefeated. But yeah, I mean, let's be honest here. Like, there's like between like Oregon, Ohio State, Steve said Texas, Alabama, like they have teams that they'd much rather put in there than Florida State without their quarterback.
Yeah, I think Florida
well,
State's got to win by 2 or 3 touchdowns, to be perfectly honest. And
I
then
think
then
I
then
think
they're in.
when I think then let's use the example of TCU and Cincinnati making it in the past 2 years. TCU even had one loss, and they lost in their championship game, and they still made it in. I think that's somewhere where I've looked at that. Like and Cincinnati and the Big East went undefeated, their competition wasn't good, and then they obviously got killed, but Cincinnati made it undefeated. I think that's kind of where I say if they're sticking with consistency, they'd put Florida State in as they put Cincinnati and TCU in.
Well, what if they lost Max Duggan or Quentin Johnston? Would you have thought the same thing? Or Darius Davis or, one of their top players?
If they still win their last 2 or 3 games without their starting quarterback, I think they still deserve it.
That's not the criteria, though. Criteria is the best four teams.
Mhm.
Nor do I
Like,
think their quarterback.
so if Christian
I think
McCaffrey goes out for the 49ers, would you say they're one of the best four teams in the NFL or best three teams?
our Jordan Travis wasn't even Florida State's best player. Their best player is Keon Coleman and then Trey Benson, who's their running back.
Still,
I
But
mean, they barely won their last game, though. So,
and
well, I
also,
mean, they were under their.
also this is entertainment too, so they do want to put out the best product. They're not going to put a backup quarterback if he doesn't show well.
yeah, you got guys like Caleb Williams making $5 million a year in college now. I mean, it's a whole different ballgame.
I
Yeah,
mean, Steve,
I
can you see
understand that.
Steve, can you see a scenario where Michael Penix and Bo Nix both make it in, or do you think they're going to pick one?
Has to be one.
There'd have to be a lot of other scenarios. I guess I don't really know what those are. I mean, I would assume that Oregon would have to win in some crazy shootout that was super close. And then you would have to have Michigan lose to Iowa for sure, which is very unlikely. And then probably Florida State would probably even have to lose in that scenario. Um, Georgia would probably have to win just to keep someone else from jumping. So yeah, I think there's a scenario because how do you argue a one loss Ohio State and Oregon and Washington don't make it over Ohio State when Ohio State didn't even play, saying all that other stuff happened. So maybe to your point, it's entertainment and you got two top 4 or 5 quarterbacks in college football. So yeah, potentially. Probably not, but potentially.
Well, I find it hard if Alabama wins. I still don't. I still think Texas should. Like when I look at it, Texas beat Alabama, but if Alabama gets in over Texas, I think what's the point of scheduling these hard head-to-head games to start the year for these teams? Like if head-to-head doesn't matter as well, just because you won the championship, like because seeing Ohio State ranked above Alabama and um Alabama and Texas, I thought was disrespectful and quite frankly stupid. Like I don't get why
Yeah.
Ohio State's ranked above them.
Yeah, but you'd also say that Minnesota Vikings weren't very good last year, but they won 6 or 7 games by a touchdown or less, which is the same thing that Texas did. So you got to look at the whole body of work. I mean, I get the head-to-head super important, but there again, I think if Alabama wins, I think Texas needs to win by 2 or 3 touchdowns to keep their standing because Alabama beating Georgia is more impressive than Texas beating Alabama, as weird as that sounds. I get your argument, and
Yeah.
it's a valid argument, but I'm just saying you got to look
I,
at the other
I
side of the coin.
I was just more selling the fact that why even schedule these hard out of conference games when they don't even matter. Like they were talking about Michigan
Oh, for
like
sure.
having an easy out of conference schedule, but why would they schedule a hard out of conference? Because it doesn't matter. Like the committee doesn't care about those games.
No, it's irrelevant. It becomes more relevant with the 12-team playoff. Absolutely.
Hmm.
100% agree with that.
Yeah, that'll be exciting next year.
Yep.
See that?
Yeah.
I mean,
That
I think
I think
if
the only
I have a hard time seeing any other team besides Ohio State and Oregon jumping into the top four, just because like I get Alabama beating Georgia. You have an argument there, but it's just like just with these teams, I don't know. I feel like it's weird to move up like for Alabama to move up 4 slots last week. Like that's kind of to Eli's credit. Like that's at that point, it's just like the rest. What is the
it's
rest of the season
bias.
for?
Yeah,
Just play a few games. You know?
yeah, you need the Florida State loss. You need a lot of things to happen. I agree. To really jump 4 spots, that would be kind of crazy. To jump Texas and Ohio State, I understand that.
Yeah.
But it's
I think with
possible.
that,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think the only way we can really see how it folds out is seeing the week fold out, and then it'll really be able to, because I think it's a 7-8 team race, which we really haven't seen. So it's a good end of this 4 team run. So that'll be intriguing. I definitely think we'll talk about that next week after the championship games unfold. But I think what we have to at least talk about a little bit, we talked about it briefly. Um, I'd say there's a little bit of concern for the Lions. Lions Twitter's in an uproar here recently. No pun intended. So I have to stay off of Twitter because it's pretty hard to read the things that Lions fans are saying. I don't know if you guys have read some of the wild takes that Lions fans have been saying. Probably they don't know what to do when they're 8-3. Um, but I'd have to go to you, Steve, first. Obviously, what concerns do you have for the team? Even though they're in a good spot to make the playoffs, there's obviously clear concerns and flaws for this team.
Yeah, I have a couple concerns. I'm a little bit concerned about what we've shown in the trenches the last few weeks. The I think a little bit will be solved this week with Jonah Jackson coming back into the lineup. I know the we had a couple familiar opponents, which Jonathan can respect as far as playing divisional games. I think the Bears and Packers are a little bit on to our game plans, is my opinion. You played the Chargers, you scored 41 points, basically hardly even sniffed a turnover. You play Green Bay and Chicago and you turn the ball over 7 times. I mean, I think some of that has to do with familiarity. So Lions got to learn to kind of switch things up, things like that. Obviously, defensive line's a huge issue right now. I know there's been, you mentioned Twitter, a lot of chatter about not making a move at the deadline. I think we can all agree. I don't think there was one move the Lions could have made that would really put them in that much of a different situation, to be perfectly honest. Um, I don't know. So those are my thoughts. I think I know Alex Anzalone is going to be out for a little while, but really that spot on the field, if you get good defensive line play, I'm not going to say you could put anybody there, but I think Jack Campbell and some of the other guys are really going to step up there. So I don't think it's going to be as big a loss as people are painting that out to be. And I think we'll make the adjustments and make improvements in the second half. And really, ball security's been huge, so they'll improve it from that standpoint. So those are some of my initial thoughts, and until I hear from you guys a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a
Yeah,
little
John.
concerned about the loss of Anzalone. If I'm not mistaken, he's like one of, if not the top rated pass coverage linebacker this year. So I think that
One of
that'll
them.
hurt for
Mhm.
sure. But isn't hasn't CJ or Chauncey Gardner, hasn't he said something about coming back?
Yeah, in the next 2 or 3
Um,
weeks, I believe, potentially. But yeah, they haven't opened the practice window quite yet.
Looks like December, like the week 16 looks like the goal.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, I think overall I'm a little concerned for the Lions. We talked about this a few weeks ago when we talked about being concerned for the Lions and the 49ers. One thing I pointed out is the lack of like wins necessarily against competitive teams, and obviously we know the Chiefs, that's huge. Chargers, but that was a really close one. But then you look at losing to Seattle, losing to Baltimore in a very like bad fashion, almost losing to the Bears, who, to Steve's credit, it's divisional football. So I think there's a little bit of a pass. And honestly, like losing to the Packers, I think is pretty big too, because I think Jordan Love is starting to come around and starting to play some nice football and starting to really develop. He had a good game against the Steelers before that. So to see him kind of progress, like they could be a fringe playoff team if he keeps going. And then their Lions schedule down the road. They still have to play Dallas. They played Minnesota twice. There was like one more that I was looking at.
Denver, it'll be a tough one too.
Yeah, Denver should be tough. So it's like stuff like that where it's like that you could easily look at another 2 to 3 losses here. And I think that's it's concerning because you definitely want a home playoff game, and you were kind of in a position where you were vying for that number one seed, and now I think the number one seed's out of reach for you just with this third loss. Which, I mean, they'll still make the playoffs. They should still win their division, which is awesome. Like something to definitely celebrate. But in a tough NFC, where you have to probably face San Francisco or Philadelphia at some point, you definitely want that home field, or at least a chance for that home field. And yeah, I think this third loss kind of takes them out of it. So I'm concerned in that sense. I mean, they'll make the playoffs, but this is a team that, for me at least, when they're on, they look like they could easily win a Super Bowl this year. But if stuff like this progresses and keeps going, I think I would be a little concerned, just for how deep they can actually go.
Yeah, I mean, I never really had Super Bowl. Like, obviously, I'd love a Super Bowl. I didn't really have Super Bowl aspirations for this year, and I think it's kind of showing like what the weaknesses still are. The defense still, if we're talking one area where Brad Holmes has missed as a GM, it's definitely been like the D tackles have not succeeded. The ones that he's drafted, Ali McNeil, obviously, but he's the one. So I think re-signing Kaminsky and Bugs, and then like players like Aruzarike and then Broderick Martin hasn't done anything this year. You're seeing guys like that where most of the guys he signed have been ineffective. So clearly that's going to have to get addressed. And then I think Gardner Johnson has to come back and he has to be effective right away, hopefully, because Kirby Joseph has been pretty bad. Um, I'd say Tracy Walker's really been Brian Branch has been solid in coverage. But he's had a couple missed tackles here and there. He played solid last week against the Packers, but I think Tracy Walker's really the one bright spot of that safety slot. So that's concerning. And then obviously Anzalone's a big loss just because like he's done well against tight ends this year. And last year when he wasn't doing well, we got torched by tight ends. So that's a bit of concern. Um, Jack Campbell's going to have to deal with Taysom Hill and Juwan Johnson, who are no slouches. They've two of the more effective pass catchers for the Saints, and especially since the Saints are banged up in the wide receiver room. But I think they'll get it on track. But I don't see them making it out of the divisional round just because being the 2 or 3 seed means they'll have to face Philly or the Niners if they win their wild card matchup, regardless, because the 2 and 3 will end up matching up in the divisional series. So it's concerning, but I mean, seeing Lions Twitter call out to get Hendon Hooker ready to play, I think people don't know what to do. Lions fans don't know what to do when we lose one game. They're getting all over their heads, but I think you just have to calm down a little bit. The Lions are 8-3. I think that's my big takeaway. I'm not overly concerned because at this point in the year we were 3 or 4 games under 500.
Yeah, I think another key player potentially. I like this. I don't know what he's actually going to do, but bringing in a veteran like Bruce Irvin on the line, even if it's making a couple plays or helping out the young guys, I think also James Houston potentially coming back if that actually happens. You get that guy that makes that big turnover, that strip sack, or whatever that play is. I mean, that can win you, say, that first home playoff game that you play this year. To your point, if you face Dallas, Philly, or San Fran in the playoffs right now, I think you lose by multiple touchdowns, unfortunately, until we figure out what's going on. Can we turn it around? Can they beat one of those teams in the playoffs? Absolutely. I'm not going to give up hope by any means, but they got to get back to what's working. You got Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, one of the best running back duos in the league. Pound that into the ground, take advantage of your offensive line, and then parlay that into the pass and use Laporta a little bit more. He's been getting 30, 35 yards a game lately. That's not going to cut it. You got guys other than St. Brown that you can use in the passing game, and they need to take advantage, hold on to the ball, and play to those strengths, and not not do these fake punts after you get within a score or 8 or 9 points. Things like that. That kind of stuff has to go out the door unless you're really going in game flow and things like that. You got to make better decisions. Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, just watching that game with that fake punt, it's like just keep the offense out at that point. Like that, you weren't getting anything with that. Yeah, I can see how like that kind of stuff is frustrating. But yeah, I mean, they should be poised next year to continue to look good, and we'll see how long they can go for. Um, yeah, I mean, these last few weeks will definitely be telling, right? It's like how they perform against. I think really how they perform against Dallas will be huge, because Dallas has looked pretty good recently. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I think this week will be telling. Beating a team that they should beat, and I do think they will beat, but um, it'll be hard to tell. The Saints are banged up, so I'd say if they lose, I might come into the pod um, quite angry, but I think after we take a short break, we will get into a little bit of just touch on baseball free agency. It's just the start, the winter meetings. After that is when it will really kick into full gear. But just a couple insights. Both of our teams have made at least a move. And then we'll get into our weekly picks. So we will be right back with you guys.
Welcome back. All right, so I had to bring it back because yeah, Eli and I started a little debate here that's a little off topic from the rest of this, but it's pertaining to sports. So I'm saying that the show and 2K make better sports games than EA because EA sucks with Madden, and Eli disagrees with me.
You know, my thing with EA is I always go back to their old games. Um, that because I guess that's because of the college games. I think the college games are the best sports game to ever be put out. Not even close. And I think if they knock it out of the park here this summer with their new college game, especially with more licensing and they can make it more like the college experience, I think it'll blow. Um, I think it'll blow at for sure 2K out of the park because 2K's gameplay is awful now. I don't know when's the last time you played 2K, Jonathan. So I don't know why you're backing 2K so much.
Because 2K
Um,
has like in-depth features in their franchise mode at least, and they add to it, and they let
they
previous
haven't
games pay
added.
for
No,
it.
no, 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 no. They have not added to their friend. They've added to my career. They have not added to
Still,
franchise
but
one bit.
still, uh, previous gens can still play it though. They let their new features go on, whereas EA made sure that all their new features only went to the next gen, and they screwed us.
I don't
There's
disagree
so
with
many
how
people
I.
like myself that got the game not knowing that now just wasted money because it's the same as last year and there's nothing new. Sure, you can argue that the gameplay is maybe a little bit different, but I don't care. Like I want more features for franchise mode. It's
I
sad
don't.
that you have a sport or a video game company that made better games in this genre like 10 years ago than they do now. Like that's ridiculous to me. Like there's no advancement of anything. Like EA sucks, and they purposely keep the game like just a little bit better each year, just so you keep buying it. And it's people like you that are going to keep funding EA that make sure that they'll never change it. And I guarantee you that the college football game will suck.
See, I think that's wild because their game, what the last time they released a college football game, it's better than any MLB, any NBA. Have you how much did you play the NCAA game?
Not the most recent one, no. But
Well, you any of them because NCAA
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
NCAA
yeah.
13, you like you don't how cool it is to be not only the fact that you play through your high school, you play through high school all the way to through college, and you like your performance in a high school bases what scholarships you get, and you're telling me like that's EA doing that isn't like that's easily like the most like if we're talking realistic and like coolest like immersive gameplay, the fact that like the Road to Glory is the single best game mode in all of sports game history. It's not even close. Like it
It's
is
not
so
though.
sick that you can do like practices because you have to earn your spot as the starting quarterback. You don't just get it like all these other games, or you can just make yourself good. It's like you have to like go through it all. It's like it's almost exactly like how it is in person.
Nah, dude, it's not the best. Sorry. Road to the Show is better than that.
Road to the show blows.
Road to the Show does not blow. I disagree with you. You might think it blows, but you want to talk about actually have to working your way up and earning, getting there? Like that's progress. And you get to play a full career after that. Whereas college is like you're there, what, like 4 or 5 years max? Like that's stupid.
If you play all of your high school and all of college, that's 8 years. So that shouldn't take you like that. That
Okay,
should take you.
franchise modes you can play like 20 plus years. Like, I'm
You
sorry,
can
like
do
that's
this.
way cooler to me.
You can do the same thing, and no, you can play as a team in the NCAA games. I always
Yeah,
play Road to
yeah, but
Glory.
okay, but you're talking about something different now. So you're talking about your player, you can only play an X amount of time and then you're done. Whereas like franchise
I was
mode,
just
you can
saying,
keep building. And the
yeah,
crappy
you
thing
could.
about college is you have players that leave and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't like the transience of college. It's
I
not
think
as
that's the
cool to me.
coolest part. You have it. It takes you have to recruit. You have to recruit diligently because you only have a specific amount of scholarships each year, and then your
No,
recruits
it's
aren't
crappy
exactly
football in
going
a
to
video
pan
game.
out.
Sorry,
What?
college football is like less quality than NFL, and the same is true in football games. Like
We're not
it's just
talking
not
about
as
the
good.
quality of the actual sport. We're talking about the video game.
No, because it translates into the video game.
What part of that translates to the video game?
I don't think it's as good.
As somebody who's played both more, I'm
There's a
gonna I'm
reason
gonna
I did not play NCAA that much. I played it. I played it a lot, like early on, but it's like it just gets old after a while. Like, sorry, like the idea of being in the NFL and like winning Super Bowls and like building dynasties—that's way cooler to me. And EA just screws it. And honestly, EA is going to keep screwing up the NCAA game. They're going to do the same thing because that's what they do. They don't care about the sports genre as much. It's bogus. And as long as EA has a monopoly over football games, it's going to suck.
I'm not gonna agree with you. So
You're not the one that just got screwed by EA.
no, I don't disagree with that. I never defended that part. We were talking about the quality of the game. I'm not talking about a trashy thing that EA did a
Because
really trashy
EA
thing.
doesn't care
Which
about their customers at all, dude.
what I
That's why
okay,
their games suck.
what I will say, um, they should make it more clear. I did know, like before buying Madden, I did know that the PS4, like if I bought it the PS4 version, I knew I wouldn't get the next gen version. That like I knew that because I read like their Instagram made that clear. Um, but it's been like when you bought it, that was like more hidden away. So,
Yeah, because
but
it's stupid. Because why would you release it to PS4 if you're not going to do anything? You're being intentionally deceptive to do that. Don't release it to previous gens if you're not going to
well,
change the
because
game.
it's more because PS4 is like 4 or 5 years back now to this point where they're transitioning generations. I think that's more.
Then make it. Then don't sell it. That's my point. Don't sell it to PS4. Then if that's your whole motive is to transition it, don't sell it. Don't make it available on PS4. That's just
They're
a
giving
shitty business deal.
well, they're giving a lot of people care about the updated rosters and all that, as well as
Dude,
the
no,
altered.
stop. Come on. A lot of people that bought the
They
new
did the
Madden.
same thing for PS3, PS4. It's
That's my
just,
point. Don't sell it if you're not going to update the features. It's it's like a crap. It's just crap.
it's something it's something that's happened where they give the game.
My point is that 2K and the show don't do that. Like their features
No,
are
two
updated.
no 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 2K does the exact same thing.
No, it doesn't. 2K has the new 2K
2K
features
no
are available on PS4.
2K the 2K when the PS5 released, the first one that released, they had two different My Careers where one was a trashier, less produced My Part for the My Career, which is their star mode. And then the other one was the one that they took a lot of time on and they made it super big for next gen because they took more time into that next gen game. They did the same exact thing. And I know you haven't owned a 2K game or played My Career. They did that same exact thing and I think it was 2K21 or 22. And I stopped buying 2K from that point because they did the exact same thing. The exact same thing.
It's not the same to me. They didn't change any. At least they have
How?
something.
How? Did you play it? Did you play? When was the
Dude,
last time you played My
just from
Career or
what people are
2K?
saying on the internet, it's not the same thing. People that have done the
You're
dude,
reading only
I'm
about
sorry,
Madden. I'm
Madden
telling
didn't
you the
add anything.
same
At least
experience. I'm
it might be
telling
a
you
crappier
these.
version, but at least it's still there. Like Madden didn't do anything.
I'm
They
telling
literally
you.
didn't do anything.
I just
They
told you the
copy and
same
paste what they
exact
made yesterday.
example. 2K, I just told you an example where 2K did the same thing. 2K did the same exact thing.
All right,
MLB, you can defend MLB, but to just say 2K is
dude,
better when
2K
they
is
do the same
2K has
things.
long been better than Madden. I'm sorry,
2K
it
has
just
been
has.
criticized just as
There's
much.
more
2K has
features.
been criticized. 2K's lost more players than Madden because all they're doing is making the game worse.
Yeah, 2K probably had more players to start with though. Because Madden sucks. Dude, Madden, stop defending Madden, dude.
I no, I'm
You're defending
defending the
EA
fact
who produces Madden and steals our money each year.
I'm more looking out for the fact that you're not calling out 2K for the same thing. When
No,
like
when
for
because
somebody
when
who's
2K was
played
making
both
even
games
baseball games,
more.
like they were still higher quality. Like I'm sorry, like 2K just does a better job than EA does. You can say it's still not good, but they still do a
You
better
don't
job.
play 2K products.
I have though, and it's been better. They have been historically better. All right, let's move on because Steve needs to talk too. Let us know in the comments what you prefer, EA, 2K, or the show. We're not talking about FIFA. I,
FIFA
I don't
might
play
be
FIFA, so I'm not going to talk.
fabulous game, but we don't have to shout out FIFA. I play that the most now. But um, do we want to quick dabble in baseball free agency, or do we want to just dabble in it quickly? I'd say um, we uh we spent a ferocious 5 to 10 minutes on that. So cool ourselves down with a little baseball. Um, Jonathan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can go. Yeah, obviously, like big news. Cardinals got Sonny Gray. Super excited about that. Not too excited about Kyle Gibson or Lance Lynn. That's kind of classic John Mozeliak, and I'm going to be really pissed if they do not go for uh, Yamamoto. But it's looking more likely that they're going to transition to relievers. Mozeliak did say never, so we'll see. I know Yamamoto's not making the decision until after the winter meetings. So we'll hear more about who he meets with probably. My guess is it's not on the DL as much as Shohei is. Shohei, little intrigued to see where he goes. Um, I'm still holding. I don't know. There's something in me that's like maybe he goes to the Mariners just because the history with Ichiro. Um, and just that pitching staff, adding him to that pitching staff in 2025, it's already like one of the best, if not the best, in baseball. He can give them that extra pop in the lineup that they need. I know Blake Snell's been a guy that's been rumored there. He wants to go home. He's been saying, "Come and get me," which begs the question: why haven't they come and got him yet? Uh, Obviously, age control and contract are going to be huge, and maybe it's because they're holding out to see what happens with Shohei. Who knows?
Yeah, Steve, what are your thoughts? And have you looked into some of the moves that have been occurring.
Not a ton. I mean, I know there's a lot of shoes that have to drop. Once those first moves are made, I mean, that kind of propels everything. You mentioned the Sonny Gray. I know the Tigers got Kenta Maeda, but I think honestly, you know, thinking that's a move to get Yamamoto is probably a little far-fetched. I would think that he would go on one of the bigger market teams that's traditionally signed, the Japanese players, whether it's the Red Sox or Yankees or, whoever that may be. There's always a big trade or two this time of year or two. I know people have inquired about Juan Soto, Bichette, and Vlad Jr. You just kind of look at those players that are kind of in the last years of that, I guess club control before they have to sign that big contract. So usually some of those guys in their fourth, fifth, sixth seasons are, moved around this time of year. And once those things happen, I think, you have that big flurry where the big contracts are handed out. And if you don't sign that big contract when they have the opportunity, you end up signing a 1 or 2 year contract for less money. So I think once some of those things happen, I agree with Jonathan. I don't know who it'll be, but it seems like Otani be somewhere on the West Coast. I know he obviously had an affinity for, I guess, California, that area, which is why he went, to the Angels to start with. So I could see him with Dodgers or, one of those teams out there for sure. So I guess those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I think I don't know if the Kenta Maeda signing was necessarily for like some people are saying Yamamoto for this year, but they're just kind of desperate for any Tiger success. I do think this was something Alavila never did. They haven't had a Japanese player since like 2000, I think is what I read. So I do think it's opening the gates for like a potential. Um, I saw like circulations. They might be more like interested in like Shota Imanga, somebody that's a little less. Because I do think Yamamoto, at this point, for the Tigers is a bit far fetched. I think handing out 200 million would be, it'd be a bit of a mistake. Kind of what Avila was doing with Zimmerman near the end of the Tigers run when they were making the playoffs. The last area when they were making the playoffs. So I think also building on what Jonathan said, I was reading like the Cardinals might have like the oldest rotation or like one of the oldest age rotations right now based off like projections, but he said relievers might get up. But I do agree with him. I did not like the Lance Lynn and Kyle Gibson signings at all. Um, those confused me a little bit. So I think for Jonathan's sake, I really hope they sign another pitcher. Because I think they might struggle near the end of the rotation right now. I think Sonny Gray is a good start. Um, but I do agree. I do think Otani's not leaving the West Coast. Um, but I think I'm most intrigued with the Juan Soto thing. I'm intrigued if he really stays on the Padres. I think if we're talking, I think Otani and him would be the two, like they're arguably like Juan Soto's um people have compared his hitting to that of like Ted Williams. It's not quite to the extent, but that's usually the comparison. So if you have a player like that, potentially on the market, somebody's going to throw a lot for him. Uh, but that's kind of what I'd say. I'd like to see what the Tigers do. I think from a Tigers fan, they might have a chance of winning their division this year just because they're in the worst division in the MLB. But those are just my thoughts. Obviously, fans saying the Tigers are going to shine Yamamoto. I don't really know. Tigers fans are a bit delusional. I guess we missed the playoffs, I say.
Yeah, I mean, I think one area where I'll push back a little bit is comparing the signing Yamamoto to Jordan Zimmerman when Jordan Zimmerman was 30 and Yamamoto's only 25. I think
No, no,
it's a
no.
good.
I was saying like handing out a big contract. Like I wasn't comparing the player. Um, I do understand obviously signing Yamamoto at this point for that value is probably less of a risk. I'm assuming that's probably more where you're getting at.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you gotta like shell out money to get players at a certain point. And I think like yeah, the Kenta Maeda thing is interesting, but it's like kind of like soon after that or like right before that, it had come out that Yamamoto doesn't really isn't necessary. It's not necessary for him to play with a Japanese player. Like he'd be okay with it. Like he has no pref. I think it helps that he has no preference necessarily of coast versus Midwest or something like that. Yeah, I've heard report or I've seen reports about like him potentially waiting until Shohei signs because potentially wanting to pitch with Shohei. So we'll see. Obviously, that'd have to be a big market team. To Steve's point, I think I would. My guess is the Dodgers are the front runners for Shohei right now. But it's kind of hard with yeah teams have to keep this kind of under wraps, otherwise they're going to lose out on Shohei. I will say I did see an article today about the Cardinals having interest in Dylan Cease. Um, I really hope we don't go for him. If we do, I really hope it doesn't require much because I'm not convinced on him. I think, yeah, this is the year to spend and go get Yamamoto, go get Shota too. Let's use Lars Nootbaar to our advantage here. International superstar, man. Let's get some Japanese players here.
Yeah, I think the winter meetings are they next week or are they
I think so.
in the next week or two? So I think that'll be the real domino. That's usually when after those when we'll see some of the big guys start to get signed. So I think we'll really be able to talk about it then. Um, and it'll be interesting to see what our teams do. Obviously, I'd assume the Cardinals will be more active than Tigers based off of um, where the top talents are in their careers because Arenado and Goldschmidt obviously have who knows how much left. Um, but I'd say any last comments on MLB free agency? Obviously, still at the very start. So at this point, it's just the few signings and rumors.
Yeah, no, I guess we'll yeah, say like I said, see what happens next.
I wouldn't buy too high on Juan Soto if I was a team trying to trade or something like that. Like I'm not giving up an arm and a leg for him. I think he's still very good, very good. Don't get me wrong, but you look at the splits between when he was with the Nationals versus when he was with San Diego, and he definitely like is like he wasn't as good. He's still very good. Don't confuse what I'm saying here. Like Juan Soto is still very good, like on a Hall of Fame track. But I mean, to Eli's point, like he was putting up Ted Williams numbers the first few years of his career, and then we saw last year after he went to the Padres his average dip, and like even now it's like I mean I know he hit 35 home runs, I get that, but still, I mean definitely a huge difference to me at least in the numbers from you look at his Padres numbers versus his national numbers. So I'd be a little concerned, but not. I mean, he's still Juan Soto. He's still very young. So, but I don't want to give up as much as say like when he was getting traded from the Nationals. I'd be a little bit more weary of that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. His on base percentage is still pretty crazy. So I think that might make a team overpay for him. But at the same time, if you're getting a Juan Soto overpaying, like as a team that is aiming to be successful for 5 to 6 years, giving up those prospects, it might turn out good for them. But oftentimes those big trades haven't always worked out as it didn't for the Padres, obviously, nor has it really for the Nationals. But um, yeah, I'd say we'll really look in after those winter meetings. But I'd say we got to get into these weekly picks, and it was the week for Jonathan. Jonathan took the reins this week with the most wins. He said he was going to do it, and he sure did. 11-5, if I remember correctly. You went correct.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, so you're within 2 games of me now. I got 48, correct? You have 46, and then Steve has 56. So unless we see a collapse, he's already got the crown. Um, but I'd say we just dive right into him. It's a much better slate than last week. Last week was I barely watched the Sunday games. I don't know how much you guys tuned in, but it was an abysmal 1 o'clock slate. But the first game we have is the Colts and the Titans. Colts on a roll. Um, so for me, I picked the Colts in this one. Gardner Minshew has actually played really well. Jonathan and I have always been on the Minshew mania. Um, we always feel like he's deserved a starting role. He's played really well, so I've got the Colts here pretty convinced. Oh, and Levis has been mediocre, as we've said. So I do have the Colts here with no Jonathan Taylor still, 31-20.
I'm going to go against the grain a little bit here. I think Jonathan Taylor out a couple weeks back. I know the Colts barely beat the Patriots. They've had some other kind of close games there. They've been on the right side, wrong side, that sort of thing, but a lot of close games regardless. So I think this game could definitely go either way. I believe Treylon Burks is back for Tennessee. Jonathan Taylor's out. It's going to have to be a lot of Zach Moss. The strength of the Titans defense is against the run. The Colts tend to be a little overly depending on force feeding Michael Pittman. So they're going to have to distribute the ball to, Alec Pierce, tight ends, and Josh Downs if they want to win this game. I think he started really hot, kind of went down a little bit, and I think he's started to kind of figure things out just a little bit more. And I don't think the Colts are super imposing. So I'm going to go Titans 21-20.
I'm gonna go Colts here. Yeah, basically for a lot of the same reasons that Eli said. Levis has kind of been underwhelming. Colts have been on a roll. Um, they've played in a lot of close games. Yeah, Zach Moss has been mostly productive throughout the year. So even though without Jonathan Taylor, I still think like they can get him involved in the passing game. They can run, and yeah, obviously a big Minshew um, fan, and I think also getting rid of Shaquille Leonard just kind of helps the locker room a little bit. No, he's a long time guy. Uh, Actually, something that I hadn't really realized that I was watching the Pat McAfee show earlier this week, and he was talking about actually Frank Wright after like Frank Wright got fired and all that stuff, and how like all the stuff that was going on in the Colts locker room at that time, like gambling, betting on games, and all that kind of stuff. A lot of like just lack of discipline. And one of the point that Pat made, because he was like, that's on Frank, but also like Frank's a good guy, but it's also on the leaders in the locker room, one of which is Shaq Leonard. So I mean, I think that obviously I don't think that he was the best fit in that locker room. Obviously complaining about playing time and all that stuff when he's lost the step. He's not the same player. So I think just like him being gone is an addition by subtraction, and I think Colts just keep rolling with their momentum. So I have them winning this one 28-14.
Damn, I didn't really think I hear a lot of Shaq Leonard slander here. I thought he took it really well, but
I'm not saying
um,
they didn't take that well, but I'm just the
I think well,
bringing into question what's going on in that locker room when he was there.
I think the playing thing was more for him himself, but I see I see your points though. Um, we got the next game. I'd call this the lock of the week if I were us. We got the Chargers against the Patriots. Patriots at home. Bailey Zappi's playing. Um, I'm a big. Our concern for my concerns for Herbert. I don't know what it is with Herbert. He's been playing great, but at the same time, I'm going to pick the Chargers here. But I'm struggling with Herbert ever being in my top five quarterbacks anymore. But I'm going to pick the Chargers here. They're finally going to win. I'm going to pick the Chargers, 28-17.
Ooh, I hesitate to call the Chargers ever the lock of the week. I also disagree with the take on Herbert. I don't think they've really done much to put the weapons around him, including the offensive line. Eckler looks like he's running in quicksand out there, and there's a lot of things about him kind of not getting his mojo back. And they got nothing at tight end. Ever since Mike Williams went down, Quentin Johnson's looking like a huge bust. So other than Keenan Allen, I don't know what Herbert has. I think this game's going to stay close. You got Chargers going to the East Coast. They tend to play their competition, whether it's good or bad. So, but I'll still go Chargers 24-20.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Chargers here as well. I'm gonna have them win this one 17-12. I agree with Steve's point about them keeping it close. Also, Bill Belichick at home, even though he doesn't have the best team, I mean, he'll try to keep it a little bit competitive. But Bill Belichick wants to lose this game too. He wants one of those top quarterbacks.
All right. Next, we have the Lions at the Saints here. Saints banged up. With the Saints banged up, it gives me a little more confidence in the Lions. So I went with the Lions here, and I went with them winning 27-20.
I think the only player the Saints are really I mean, Michael Thomas has been out for a while, Rashid Shaheed, but it looks like Chris Olave is trying to come back. So,
Marshawn
not
Lattimore's out.
yeah, he's been out for a while. So I mean the point there is I think they'll still have plenty of weapons on offense. They got Taysom Hill, they got Chris Olave, they got Juwan Johnson. I mean, I think they'll still move the ball. But I think both defenses are struggling to your point on Lattimore being out. I do agree with that. I'm going to go Lions 31-27. It's going to be a game like the Chargers game, I think.
I think the Lions get back on track here. I think New Orleans has been pretty underwhelming for most of the year. I think this is a team that should have been kind of running away with their division and hasn't. So I think the Lions, this is a good game for them to get back on track. This is Dan Campbell's old stomping grounds. So he's going to come back with a vengeance. I have the Lions winning this one 42-24.
All right, next we have the Falcons at the Jets. Jets still running with Tim Boyle, and for that reason alone, I will be running with the Bijan Robinson now led Falcons. Low scoring game, 24-10.
I agree with the Falcons. I think the Falcons are going to struggle maybe on both running and passing against the Jets defense. I don't think they do have Bijan, but the Jets have a really good defense. What's going to win the game for the Falcons is exactly what you said. Tim Boyle starting for the Jets. So I'm going to go Falcons 13-9.
Yeah, I'm pretty on par with you, Steve. I have the Falcons winning this one 17-9.
And next we have the Cardinals at the Steelers. Cardinals showed their true colors. They lack in a lot of areas in the defense. And I think Kenny Pickett will have another solid game and they'll finish drives. I went with the Steelers, 24-6.
I like the Steelers in this one as well. We'll see what James Conner can do against the Steelers, but he'll definitely he'll get the ball 15 to 20 times. I think they'll make a point there, but I just don't think there's enough there. And you're also playing the game in Pittsburgh, which I think is a huge deal. So Pittsburgh 27-11.
I said I wasn't going to pick the Steelers again until they proved that they could function as an offense. They proved that last week, and their run defense coming off of like holding Joe Mixon to like under like 40, 50 yards. Like they dominated there. So I think James Conner is going to run into some problems here. That being said, they'll find a way to shoot themselves in the foot and keep it decently close. I have the Steelers winning this one 19-12.
Next, we have the Dolphins at the Commanders. Didn't think much about this one. The Commanders' defense is awful. Dolphins' defense is elite. I went with the Dolphins here. I went 35-21.
Um, yeah, I mean, definitely the Dolphins. I know Tua hasn't really been completely on target. I know they've played some tougher defenses. I believe he only has 4 touchdowns in his last 3 games. But saying that the Commanders are one of the worst defenses in the league, especially with some of the players they let go at trade deadline. So get right for Tua, Miami 38-24.
Yeah, Miami 38-13. Too old to torch them.
Next, we have the Broncos at the Texans. Really interesting game. Russ has been on fire. Stroud's been on fire. But I'm going to go with the better defense, which is the Broncos. I think the Broncos will force Stroud to have a turnover or two. So I went with the Broncos and Russell Wilson winning this one 27-24.
Yeah, I think Peyton will really find some ways to exploit CJ Stroud and some of the things they do well. Houston's run game is kind of hit or miss, so I think they'll really take advantage, like I said, of some of those things. I know Dalton Schultz is banged up, probably miss this game. That'll hurt that side. So I'm gonna go Denver 19-17. I think they're gonna pound them, and Russ is gonna do just enough.
Yeah, I like the way that the Broncos have been playing a lot. I think Peyton's gonna find ways to exploit Stroud, and I think Russ is gonna be clutch when he needs to be. Broncos win this one 24-21.
Next, we have the Panthers at the Bucks. The Bucks have been close to winning their past couple of games, haven't been able to finish it out. And I think this is the one. I think the Bucks beat the Panthers with an intern coach. The Bucks will win this one 31-14.
Yeah, I don't know what you do the first game without the coach. You kind of clean house on the offensive side of the ball, along with getting rid of Reich. But yeah, I think Tampa, they have a lot of experience on their side on both sides of the ball. So I have to go Tampa 24-10.
Uh, yeah, I'm going to go Tampa here. Trying to see. I thought I saw a post about them being named like the defense of the month or something like that. Maybe that was wrong. But whatever. Yeah, they win this one, 21-10.
Next, we have the Browns at the Rams. Browns most likely starting Joe Flacco. And for that reason, and the Rams' hot offense, I'm going to go with the Rams in this one, low scoring 21-6.
Yeah, Joe Flacco might crap his pants if Aaron Donald comes after him. So let's say he can't move too fast. He's heading towards well past real retirement age. So I'm gonna go. I agree. Rams 21-13.
Yeah, I'm going Rams here, 28-14. Joe Flacco doesn't stand a chance. He's not elite.
Next, we have the 49ers at the Eagles. Really big game. And I think based off who I thought has played better recently, I'm going to go with the Niners here. I think their defense will give Hurt some trouble. So I went with the Niners here, 28-24.
Yeah, I mean, kind of when you have that big high that Philly had last week, Buffalo, hitting the 59-yard field goal, kind of escaping the possible Gabe Davis touchdown. I just think you're going to drop after that game. To your point, San Fran's been playing really well. Earlier in the week, I wanted to pick the Eagles in this game, but I got to go 49ers as well, 31-27.
Yeah, I don't like the way that the Eagles have been playing. They easily could have lost the last 2 games. And so, yeah, I like the way that SF has been trending. I think they win this one 27-24.
Next, we have the Chiefs at the Packers. Packers have been playing better recently, but I think this is a Chiefs had a good second half finally, so I do think the Chiefs will take this one pretty easily. I think they will win it 31-21.
I think this game is going to be super close. Green Bay showed what they can do in the defensive line with Rashawn Gary. Where KC struggled has been those tackles, getting penalty after penalty after penalty. So I think it's going to stay close right to the end. But I do think the Chiefs will pull it out, some kind of Mahomes TD drive or Jordan Love interception or something like that. But KC 24-20.
Yeah, this is gonna be one of the few ones where we differ. I like the way Jordan Love has been playing, and honestly, Kansas City has been underwhelming. They go against like a slightly better offense against the Raiders. I think they win that game. or the Raiders win that game, or the Chiefs lose the game. Either way. So I think the way that Jordan Love has been playing, he looks a lot more poised. Um, and I think it's going to serve him well here. And it's at home for Green Bay. Uh, Starting to get into a little cooler temperatures there. That's kind of where they're supposed to be thriving. So I like them in this one. I think they're going to win a close one, 27-24.
In the last game, we had the Bengals at the Jags. With Jake Browning now banged up, I went the Jaguars easily. I went with it 31-14.
I think this will be a close game. I think Cincinnati can hang. But Jacksonville at home Monday night. I'm going to go Jacksonville. Travis Etienne is banged up as well, so that'll hurt. I'm going to go Jacksonville 27-21.
Josh Allen gets multiple sacks in this game. Jacksonville wins it easily, 27-10.
All right, with that, another great episode. Also, Jonathan, have fun in Vietnam. We'll miss
Thank
you
you.
for 2 weeks.
Yes.
So we'll miss you. And with that, another great episode of Speak Now. Speak now or forever hold your peace. See y'all.
Hey, real quick before we say goodbye, there's only like 2 picks that differ. We're basically all the same.
Oh,
Yeah,
unreal.
that's what happens this time of year as you go down the line, though.
Yeah. Besides the Colts game and then the Chiefs game, that's it. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. Anyway, thanks guys. I'll see you guys in a couple of weeks.